Hello everyone, this is Independence Guitar. Hope you're all having a good night or day wherever you are in the world, and thank you for joining me on this rant. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to make it a regular thing and just call it something like Guitarist Talks Too Much, Episode 1. Anyway, came across some pretty crazy information that I wanted to share. I had to go onto the interwebs and the socials to confirm that it was true, and I did confirm that it was true. However, I just don't see anybody talking about it, which is kind of concerning given the gravity of the situation if it were to actually happen. And yeah, so I figured I would come onto YouTube and scream it into the void, and hopefully I can reach a few people and maybe save somebody some grief. And actually, I even sat on this for a few days just to see if anything of substance would come to the surface, and nothing. Let me preface this by saying that I'm an old man, and in my ripe old age of my mid to late 30s, I do some boring adult stuff like study business models and invest, as I would one day like to have something to leave behind for my family like most adults. And two business models that have really stuck out to me like a sore thumb over the years have been YouTube and Twitter, and this is because when you break down the models, I just can't wrap my head around how they could possibly be profitable. Now, YouTube, I have suspected, runs at a loss for quite a while. This is because, well, reason one being the obvious thing that everybody can see is how restrictive and constrictive YouTube is around their terms of service, their monetization policies, and their ad policies. And it seems that the longer that YouTube goes, the worse and worse they get, especially for creators. There's even entire genres of creators that seem to get the really bad end of the stick every single time. And the other reason, probably more importantly, is just how non-transparent Google is about YouTube's finances. You can never seem to get any concrete numbers about what YouTube's revenue and profits are. Now, if you actually go and Google it, research it, whatever, there's a lot of sites and articles that seem to lay out Google's narrative that YouTube does run at a profit. It's just a very slim profit margin. And in fact, YouTube is Google's least profitable entity. And they tend to lay it out pretty straightforward, like where Google gets its revenue from and how they divvy it up. However, if you really start to dig, there's a lot of other places that take a lot of other things into consideration and go over a lot more nuance. Things like bandwidth. So if you think about how many people are live streaming on YouTube at any given moment, especially like a Friday or a Saturday night, bandwidth is not cheap, and that is a lot of bandwidth. So then there's also the issue of storage. Storage isn't quite as bad as bandwidth, but again, the sheer amount of content that is uploaded to YouTube every single day, and that they've been around now for about 15 years or so, that is massive, and that cannot be cheap either. So all things considered, I have to give Google the benefit of the doubt that they do actually run YouTube at a slim profit margin. This is just because since Google is not transparent about the financials, we can't really glean any hard evidence to the contrary. But if you humor me for a moment and just pretend for a second that YouTube is run at a deficit, that Google is subsidizing YouTube, that would beg the question, why? Why would Google do such a thing and take money from other successful parts of their business, their company, and dump it into YouTube, knowing full well that they're going to lose that money? Well, we don't really have to think about it too hard or throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, because fortunately there has been a recent example of why a company would do such a thing. And unless you've been living under a rock, you already know what I'm talking about, and that is the acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk didn't try to buy Twitter just outright at first. First, he tried to buy a certain percentage of the stock so that basically he would have enough influence so that he could influence the decisions being made at Twitter. And what the CEO and the board did was they said, hey, we'll give you a spot on the board, but you have to promise not to buy more than this percent of the company. And Musk, realizing that this is just a ploy to try and sideline him, he said, you know what? No. Not only am I not going to do that, I'm going to sell my stock which is going to tank your stock price, and then I'm going to turn around and do a hostile takeover and buy your company anyway. And Twitter freaked out, and they tried to do everything they could not to let Elon Musk buy Twitter. They even almost poison pilled their own stock price, which means they basically create a bunch of new stock and put it into circulation, which dilutes the price of their stock price, sort of nuking their own company just to keep Elon from buying it. What it does is if you own like 10% of the company and then the company does a poison pill and makes a bunch of brand new stock and puts it into circulation. Now, instead of owning 10%, you might only own 7 or 8%. And so it's not a good thing for the investors. And what they ended up having to do was Elon Musk came around with a premium offer, which means he was offering quite a bit more than the company was actually worth. He offered $44 billion. And Twitter, realizing that they're probably going to get sued by their investors if they don't at least entertain the deal, they went ahead and had to put it to a vote. And the investors voted to go ahead and take the deal and make the money. So the deal was done, and they started entering into the contracts and the securing the loans and all that whole part of the internal negotiations. And at that point, Elon Musk was under an NDA, so he wasn't really allowed to talk about any of the inside business dealings that he learned during that time. But once he actually got a look at the real financials of Twitter and what he was about to inherit, he tried to run for the hills. He realized, like, whoa, man, this thing is about to crash and burn. I don't want anything to do with it. So he tried to run. And Twitter, ironically, after trying so hard not to let Elon Musk buy the company, now all of a sudden is suing Elon Musk, saying, you know what, no, you've seen behind the curtain, the company is yours, you're going to buy it, or we're going to sue the crap out of you, and you're basically going to have to pay us $1 billion or more for nothing. So they entered into a legal battle, and Musk used the time, at least from what I can see, he used the time to sort of just, I guess, stall, try to come up with some kind of game plan of how he was going to go about this. And eventually, after, it was looking like he was going to lose his court case anyway, he conceded and said, you know what, never mind, I will buy it at the original price that I offered, which was $44 billion, and that's that. So everything went through, they finished the negotiations, Elon Musk finally inherited the company and was able to talk about all the stuff that he wasn't able to talk about during the negotiations. And what he revealed pretty much broke the internet. Now that Musk was no longer tied up by the non-disclosure agreement, he immediately dropped the bombshell that Twitter was operating at a negative $3 billion a year cash outflow. So in case you're not really a nerd like me and don't understand financials, in a nutshell, you have your revenue, which is all of the money that the company brings in, before you have your operational costs, which is, the salaries, the building cost, and everything. Once you subtract all of that, you're left with your profit margin. Now, Twitter not only didn't have a profit margin, they had a negative $3 billion a year cash outflow. Now, this throws up all kinds of red flags and raises all kinds of questions. How long was Twitter operating like that Elon Musk inherited such a debt when he bought the company? And if they were that far in debt, how are they able to be so frivolous? In case you're not familiar with how Twitter was operating, they were hiring like crazy. They had all kinds of divisions in their company that did pretty much absolutely nothing. Elon Musk sliced 80% of the workforce upon acquiring Twitter and still was able to make the company work. Twitter had all these excess employees that were making six-figure salaries to work 3 or 4 hours most of the time from home. And in case you're wondering what it's like to be a Twitter employee, how hard the job is, why they make so much money, and why they need such a, intensive workforce, Well, you don't need to look that far. Go on to Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and look up these videos of a day in the life of a Twitter employee. They are, to say the least, to put it mildly, that job was cush. Musk likened the condition of Twitter at the time of his acquisition to a plane heading straight towards the ground with the engines on fire and the controls don't work. So needless to say, the company was going to crash and burn, and there wasn't really anything that anyone could do about it. But again, that begs the question, just like with YouTube, if that was the case, how are they able to get away with running at a deficit for so long, especially if their board members were supposed to be accountable to the investors? How are they able to get away with so much malfeasance and being so frivolous with the revenue? Now, Musk was under a ton of scrutiny at the time, and in an act of transparency and to further explain the malfeasance going on behind the scenes at Twitter, he dumped a huge trove of documents onto the laps of a handful of journalists that everybody dubbed the Twitter files. Now, I'm not going to go over all of the topics that they covered, and there are many. However, I did want to touch on the one that pertains to this case, and that is the subsidization of Twitter. So, as it would have it, the Twitter files contain the receipts for many different scandals that were going on at Twitter behind the scenes, but the one that pertains to this particular case is that the US government, as well as other governments around the world, and certain people within certain companies that were high-dollar donors to certain social media platforms, they had their own portals. Now, this wasn't just at Twitter, this was at Twitter and Facebook at least, that we know of for sure, but I would be more than willing to bet that this was happening at YouTube as well. So anyway, yeah, they had their own portals where they could go and complain. So if somebody were to put up a post, a meme, a video that somehow dissented from a certain narrative that certain people were paying high dollar for, they could be removed instantly. And they didn't have to go about the normal channels of reporting like us plebs. They had their own special channels where they had direct access to the higher ups at Twitter. Now, the longer that this has gone on, the more tension and chaos that it has brewed across all social media platforms, and it's not really so much the rules or the terms of service, but more how they're applied. Because they've never been applied evenly or fairly, it's always arbitrarily and against whatever dissenter of the narrative or the dissenter of the ideology. And it's very clear where it's coming from. And I can already hear the argument now because I've heard it a million times.
But these are private companies. They can do whatever they want.
Stop it. Get some help.
Yes, normally I would agree with you. They are private companies, and yes, they can do what they want, including censor whatever speech that they want to censor. However, at least in the US, we have a constitution, and in that constitution there is the First Amendment. And that First Amendment guarantees that the government cannot censor your speech. They cannot recommend censoring your speech. They cannot even think about recommending to censor your speech. So the minute that a government reaches out to a social media platform and decides what narratives and what words and what things are allowed to be talked about, that is a infringement on the First Amendment, and in the US at least, that's a huge no-no. So this brings me to the million-dollar question, and that is, do these same practices happen at YouTube? We already know that they were happening at Twitter, and that they were and may still be happening at Facebook. But does it happen at YouTube, and is Google subsidizing it to basically keep YouTube around as a narrative machine? Now, this is important, and to finally get around to the information I was originally talking about, it turns out in the last couple weeks that the Department of Justice has just brought litigation against Google for its monopolistic practices and intend to break the company up. Now, this has a lot to do with YouTube because it's completely directed at the ad practices of Google, and I will put up the litigation from the Department of Justice website up here on the screen. I guess you can pause it and read some of it yourself, or I will also leave the link down in the description so you can go and read the entire suit yourself. But if this were to happen and Google were to get broken up, this would be apocalyptic for YouTube, especially in the case that I am correct and YouTube doesn't actually turn a profit, because either YouTube would get broken up from Google, or even if YouTube remained an entity of Google, Google would lose access to this huge revenue that it brings in from this monopolistic thing that it has over the ad space on the internet. Now, you may be so used to the way that YouTube is run that you just think that this is business as usual. However, I would remind you that YouTube is still a business, and from a business perspective, all they've done for the last 15 years is clamp down on and cut off their revenue stream. And you can say that it's in the name of stopping hate speech and mis and disinformation, etc., etc. However, that is just not reality. That is not the case, because those are not the people who are being affected. Yes, maybe there are some really hateful people out there that are being stopped. However, usually the victims in the matter are people like gaming channels. Just in the last month and a half, there was thousands of gaming channels that were demonetized randomly, that were retroactively demonetized. They were retroactively given strikes for videos they made where they were in compliance of the terms of service at the time, and then YouTube suddenly changes them and doesn't even send out like an email to notify people, just sort of goes in the middle of the night and edits something, and now suddenly there's thousands of gaming channels that are now outside the lines of the terms of service and are being struck down and demonetized. This is not a healthy way to run a business or gain a profit. And furthermore, as far as their subscription service goes, YouTube, unless you have YouTube Premium, YouTube has basically become unwatchable. I've actually just got rid of my premium, my YouTube Premium, because, well, it started, there was a few channels that I watch, and they are completely unrelated from each other, but they're all sort of in the same category of being not huge YouTube channels, but not small ones either. Like, I'll just say 15,000 subscribers or more. And suddenly they were all saying how they've lost about 30% of their revenue stream. This kind of, got on my nerves, because how come YouTube is just suddenly changing their terms of service, downing the revenue? If they are a profitable company, if they are doing business in the correct way, why is it that the creators are the ones that get punished constantly? So I was already thinking about getting rid of my YouTube Premium. I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to get rid of my YouTube Premium and I'm just going to pay my favorite creator on Patreon, because why am I going to give it to YouTube? And then I happened to be showing a friend one of my songs that are on my YouTube channel. You can go ahead and take a look. I actually might leave a card up here somewhere. So I was showing them this song, and I realized when he played it that they played an ad on my video. Now, my channel is not monetized. You need at least 1,000 subscribers to be monetized, and so many watch hours. And at the time of making this video, I have about 430 or 440 subscribers, give or take. Maybe at the time you're watching this video, maybe I do have 1,000. I don't know. But point is, my channel is not monetized, and I don't really have an issue if YouTube wanted to play ads on my talking videos or my videos where I'm going, fixing a guitar or giving a lesson or something like that. I don't think I would necessarily have a problem with that. But to put it on my music, that is my intellectual property, like, period. So that they are playing ads and making money off of my music and not sharing, not even offering to share, that kind of pissed me off. So to put it lightly, I was a bit taken back by this, and I actually went and checked my email to see, and they did send out an email some months back that said, basically, we reserve the right to play ads on your videos whether you're monetized or not. And so this was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I got rid of my YouTube Premium because I am not going to pay them $20 a month to keep screwing YouTube up from the YouTube that I used to know and love, because I don't like what it's become. And like I said, without premium, it's become unwatchable. It used to be just one ad before a video. Now it's a double ad. Then it's a double unskippable ad. Now there's 2 in the middle, and then there's 2 at the end. It's just become so tedious to watch. YouTube, it's where no longer the videos are the product, you are the product. They are selling you to the advertisers. And just one more nail in YouTube's coffin, like I said about the terms of service and the monetization policies, they are never applied evenly and fairly, always arbitrarily and, well, just however YouTube wants to apply them. And this can be further exampled if you compare any of the thousands of gaming channels that got retroactively struck and demonetized to one of YouTube's good old boys like Markiplier. I would almost guarantee that Markiplier's channel has either not been affected or very minimally affected by the changes in the terms of service that pretty much took out thousands of other channels. Now, I'm not trying to throw any shade Markiplier's way. I like his channel, I watch him sometimes, and he seems like a nice enough guy. I am just pointing out that he is still one of YouTube's golden boys, and nothing changes that. He abides by a different set of rules than we do. YouTube sets their terms of service. It's not like we can democratically vote on them. They set them however they want to squeeze every penny from us, and the least that we could ask from them is that the terms of service are applied evenly and fairly. But anyway, to try and wrap this up, I'm not saying that YouTube is just going to suddenly disappear tomorrow, nor am I saying that everybody should ditch and abandon YouTube. The platform has been around a long time, and for a long time the platform was really great. And I'm very much hoping that maybe if Google is broken up, maybe YouTube can kind of return to its former glory, where the creators and the people who watch the platform are the ones that really get a hand in dictating what the terms of service should be, instead of YouTube being a company that basically kneels to elites that are trying to decide for us what the narrative is. But what I am saying is that if you have a favorite creator on YouTube, you should support them, and not just support them, but encourage them to start uploading their stuff on other platforms. And I don't mean just ditch YouTube, upload it on YouTube, but also upload it on other platforms, like for instance Twitter will very soon have the ability to host content. Even with Twitter Blue right now, you can upload longer form videos. And then there's other companies like Rumble. Now, Rumble has its own issues. One, that it is like 95% political, and more so right-wing political. But, that's just the thing. If you have a platform that is all right-wing political, then at least from my point of view, people on the left wing should be flooding that platform too, trying to fight it. But more than that, if musicians and gamers and all kinds of other creators started to flood this other platform, well then it wouldn't be 95% political speech. It would be the same as YouTube. Some political speech from the right, some political speech from the left, some from the center, and then more than anything, a ton of other entertainment channels. And that's what we need. We need the entertainment. We need the comedy. We need all of that stuff, because that is what makes the human experience great. Politics can take a hike. I don't care about it. I don't care what side you're on. I don't care. Did I mention I don't care? Rumble actually acts as a deterrent to YouTube. In a lot of cases, there are creators who are more popular on Rumble than they are on YouTube. And while YouTube would have no hesitation giving them the axe because of the fact that they make a ton of money on Rumble, well, YouTube's looking at them like, well, we want to destroy their livelihood. That's why we want to cancel them. So if we kick them off of YouTube, they're still going to make a bunch of money on Rumble. We're just not going to get any. So that's my point. YouTube is a business, and for a long time they have not had to give a product to you. Like I said before, you have become the product. It is you who pays with your time to watch the ads. You could have a 30-second video and you got to watch 3 ads to watch it. And if not, you're paying $20 a month premium for what? just to take the ads off the videos. It's not a good business model. It's not a healthy environment for creators, and it's definitely not a healthy environment for creativity. So anyway, to close this all out, let me know what you think. Have you read the litigation from the DOJ against Google? What do you think about YouTube's terms of service? What do you think about how YouTube enforces the terms of service? Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? Let me know it all down in the comments section. Leave a like if you will, and if I've earned your subscription, please go ahead and do that. Check the bell, and hopefully I will see you guys next time. Let me know, am I over the target or am I full of it? This has been JB Independence Guitar, episode 1 of Guitarist Talks Too Much.